Yo guys, Mike for Sim Racing 604, and you are looking at the Moza Racing R16 V2 wheelbase, the newest wheelbase from Moza Racing. It includes the same technology that helped the likes of the R12 to gain its huge improvements in force feedback from the earlier models, and also retains the same high levels of peak torque that the outgoing R16 included. So is this sort of a best of both worlds wheelbase? Is this the new flagship wheelbase for Moza Racing? Let's find out in this review. Alright, so as mentioned, you are looking at the Moza Racing R16 V2 wheelbase. This should be available to pre-order or order by the time this video comes out. And full disclosure, this was sent to me for free by Moza Racing to review. No money changed hands, I don't offer affiliate links, and the thoughts and opinions and words are my own. So what do we have here? Well, it's, as I mentioned in the intro, kind of the best of both worlds. So the older R16, the older R21 from Moza Racing were two of their first offerings. And although the peak torque values were high, it lacked something in the force feedback departments. The reviews are still generally positive, but this V2 kind of captures what we saw in like the R5 and the R12, which seems to be newer force feedback, either algorithms or internal programming or the motor quality, whatever it is that they packed into those wheelbases. It's now been included in this R16. So it delivers a higher quality of force feedback, definitely, than the outgoing R16, and seems to sort of capture the best of the R12. Now, I love the R12. I think the R12 wheelbase is one of the best offerings in sim racing right now. I think for the price and, you know, what you get at that price, I don't think you can do much better for a mid-range wheelbase, but this R16 kind of takes things to the next level. So, of course, it has an additional 33% peak torque offering, and bringing that up to 16 Newton meters, but it also has much of what made the R12 special in my mind, including this quick release. I understand Fanatec has released their QR2 at this point, and everyone is rejoicing, which is great. And there's a lot of other different quick release systems on the market. In my opinion, and I will stand on this, I say Moza has done it right from the start. This is just a quick slide-on clamp. It's super easy, super simple, and of course this R16 includes that, and that goes all the way down to the R3, by the way. They include that in everything, and they have done it right. Flipping it around to the back, it has power connection, USB connection, and then ports, RJ ports for the various peripherals. So you can attach a dash to this, which will sit right on top of the wheelbase and give you your information about your race, of course. And they also have a handbrake, they have a shifter, and I believe they're coming out with a sequential shifter soon, so hopefully that will be able to plug into this as well. The bolts and power supply, USB cable are all included with this. And then we'll talk about mounting. So if you look at the bottom here, there are 4 bolts here, which allow you to sit this on your wheel plate and bolt it down. The bolts are included. And then if you're looking to front/side mount, there are 4 bolts up front. Not sure how I'll be able to capture this on camera, but there's basically 4 bolts up front. And then you can order the front mount kit, 4 bolts, and then you can attach it to the side, or to have 2 supporting pieces here and front mount this. So very cool. It seems well optioned. One of the things also about this is you can see it has style. I like this. If you've watched any of my reviews in the past, you know I've been critical of the CSLDD and the Moza R9, the Moza R5. They just look like shipping containers to me. And I've said this before, forgive the repurposing of an analogy, but we're car people. We like smooth lines, we like tapers, we like things like that. Moza has gone with that style for this R16 V2. The outgoing R16 also had it, but yeah, nice smooth design, and looks better than 99% of the sort of mid-range offerings on the market. So looks like it pretty much has everything in it. Is compatible, of course, with the Moza Pithouse software, which we will take a look at in a second. The price is $800 US. So it puts it, you know, it's still $800 for a video game controller. So I'm not going to say it's cheap, but certainly at 16 Newton meters, it puts it kind of at the lower end of that level of output from a direct drive wheel. So priced fairly, I would say. And of course, it's compatible with most of the modern Moza Racing wheels. I've tried it with my CS, my KS, my GS, and my FSR. So most of the major wheels that Moza offers are compatible with this R16 V2. So again, it seems to have everything. I've been fortunate. I've had this for a few weeks now. I've snuck it into a few videos. I broke embargo. Bad mic. But if you go back to some of my older videos from the past few weeks, you may just catch a glimpse of this R16 V2. It's because I was testing it. A lot of times when I'm doing hardware reviews, I'll get it kind of 1 week in advance of the release, and I'm like, okay, I gotta quickly put this thing through its paces. Not with the R16 V2. I've had this for a few weeks and had a chance to thoroughly test it. And yeah, it's stood up really well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the software, then we'll drive it, then we'll come back to the table and talk about things I like, don't like, and things I'm just kind of okay with the Moza Racing R16 V2. All right, so I've got my R16 mounted. I'm gonna go ahead and plug it in via USB. And we should see here in the pit house software, we should see that top right-hand corner there, the R16 base. We should see that light up. Maybe if I turn it on, it would help. And there we are. So I can physically manipulate it right now. I have no wheel attached. I know it's off camera, but I have no wheel attached. And I can turn that shaft and see the motion there on the left. I'm going to go ahead and grab my CS wheel, attach it, and I should now have buttons showing. There we go. Okay, but let's go into the R16 base, and as you can see, we have all our controls here. So there's presets. Right now I have it set to GT, which gives it a 540 degrees of rotation, and sets road sensitivity to 10. If we go Formula 1, for example, 360 karting performance, actually it doesn't affect this. Sorry, I thought it would affect road sensitivity, but it does not. Rally back to 540, etc., etc. So my default is the GT. Again, road sensitivity. This one is the one that's going to vary the most from sim to sim, is what I find. Right now it's on 10. That's going to be pretty loud, so I might recommend scaling that back a bit if you're getting sort of extra noise with your R16 V2. And then we have all kinds of sort of high-level controls here. Force feedback intensity, it's basically a 1 to 10. You can set individual percentages here, but I think if you slide it, it goes in increments of 10%. That is correct. Let's see, can we... Does that take? Maybe not. Anyway. Did that work? Yeah, there you go. So you can do it by percent. That's awesome. Wheel speed, wheel spread. I'm not going to go through all of them. You can just sort of mouse over and it will tell you what each of these settings does. If we go into advanced, same thing. You have mouse over callouts here for each of them. So you have a high degree of control. It's very easy to customize. We even have this effect equalizer. So if you're driving and you're like, you know what, I can't feel those curbs at kind of mid speed, well, you can bump that up a bit or whatever. Body bumps, you know, I'm doing a lot of karting. I keep bumping into the other carts and it's jerking the wheel out of my hand. Well, you can just dial that down. So up to you. Force feedback curve, you can set, you know, linearity here. I keep it linear always, and then we just have different settings here. Base status indicator, I don't think this has one. I'll be honest. I think there's no light that's indicating whether it's on or off, so I don't know that this does anything. The soft limit stiffness, this is a very good setting, very interesting setting. I love that Moza did this. And we set the soft limit here. Yeah, so just huge amounts of controls. Most of what you'll do is in basic settings. You can get probably 90% of your ideal force feedback settings set here, and then we go into advanced and we can kind of tune from there. So very intuitive software. I like the Pit House software, and it works well with this R16 V2. All right, let's go ahead and start driving and test this wheelbase out. All right, so here we are in Assetto Corsa. And we're going to do some laps here at Sachsenring using the RSS Evo 2. Lots of curbs here. Lots of high-speed corners where the car is going to be fighting for grip, and we should be able to feel those tires kind of scraping across the surface. So right away, I can notice that curb detail
just these tiny vibrations through the wheel. They come through so nice and strong though, so pure. And then gaining a little bit of speed here. Too much speed, in fact. So I felt that, that's for sure. But as we come around the corner, and again, we're just on the very limits of grip here. And then we come through this corner here, the hard left-hander. Actually, we've got 3 left-handers in a row. And yeah, that little correction there, I'm sure you saw that. That was not me jerking the wheel. That was the strength of this R16. This is what a stronger wheelbase can do for you. It's going to give you those forces. When you see onboards, and there's tons and tons of onboard video of real race cars and even track day cars, people like to set up GoPros, and one thing you notice is that it's like a constant fight. There's not a lot of times, especially when they're cornering, where the wheel is just turned to a certain degree of rotation and the driver's just kind of taking the day off. No, it's the opposite. It's, you know, lots and lots of fighting, and those kind of forces, that's what comes through in a wheelbase like this. It's phenomenal. It reaches a level that my R12, which I absolutely love, just simply cannot touch. Like, this is a level beyond. This is way more pure. I love the R12, and everything I've said about it in the past is true, but this just simply does things that wheelbase cannot. And let's quickly talk about what those higher torque values mean in terms of performance, because I see people all the time in forums and YouTube comments and discussions everywhere, like, why do I need more torque? I run a, for example, CSL DD with 5 Newton meters, and I don't even turn it all the way up. Why do I need more strength than that? Well, you're not talking about the resistance. Like, through the corners, I can set up this R16 to, you know, be perfectly smooth, to turn it with one finger, let's say, and it's still going to feel better than that CSL DD 5 Newton meter. Why? Because of the little forces. So the curb detail, that curb we were just going over, the R16 V2 is going to be able to give you more detail than the CSL DD. Because of that stronger motor, it can create better instantaneous forces. So if it needs to give detail, it can rotate that wheel that much faster and give you that added level of detail. That's basically what you're going for when you have a higher strength motor or higher peak torque motor. So it's not the sustained forces. You're not going to have to wrestle this thing constantly. It's those details. It's more detail, which is surprising in some respects. It seems like a stronger motor, you would just be fighting it, but that's not the case. You can turn it down in the software, in the game, what have you, and it's still going to be able to deliver those forces that a weaker wheelbase will not. I just felt it there. There's a bit of understeer from the car, and I could feel that in beautiful detail here with this R16 V2. I would say there is kind of a point of diminishing return for wheelbase strength, and it's going to differ user to user. I would say mine comes in somewhere around 10 Newton meters. It used to be lower, it used to be 8, but I've been spoiled in the past few years with some stronger wheelbases, and I think mine has moved up a bit. And so what I mean by the point of diminishing return is where it starts to matter less, the additional torque values, the higher torque values. So for example, if you're going from a Logitech G29, for example, which is a belt drive wheel, or excuse me, a gear driven wheel, or let's say Thrustmaster T128, and then jump onto a CSL DD with 5 Newton meters of torque, or a Moza R5, your mind is absolutely going to be blown, and you'll wonder how you did without direct drive before. And then if you go from 5 Newton meters to, say, 8 Newton meters, let's say you get a boost kit for your CSL DD, or upgrade from your R5 to an R9, you will also just get this jolt of like, wow, I didn't realize how much I was missing. This is incredible. This feels so much more detailed, and it carries on like that for a little bit. And I would say for me that applies to the T818 and the Logitech G Pro, Moza R12. Those come in 11 or 12 Newton meters. And then it starts to matter a little bit less. So, like going from a 12 to a 16, your mind is going to be less blown, in my opinion, than going from an 8 to a 12, or certainly from an 8 to a 4. So, again, it's kind of cresting. For me, it's around 10, around 12, something like that. Some people it's higher, some people it's lower, and then you get way up. Like the most powerful wheelbase I own is the R21. If you go from this 16 to the R21, in my opinion, you're whoa, yikes! It's doing so well there, talking and driving. It's going to matter less, and some people, I know Barry from Sim Racing Garage, his point of diminishing return is somewhere around 20. He doesn't like to drive anything under 20 Newton meters of torque. Mine certainly is not that high, and again, a lot of people's is going to be lower. So it's going to, vary on the person, but I think probably most people would come in somewhere between 8 and 12 for when Newton meters start to matter a lot less. So, all that to say that that's why torque values matter. So, you're going to get more detail with a motor that has a higher peak torque rating. But again, after a certain point, there's really not much extra detail that can be perceived, or those details that can be perceived matter a little bit less. So that's what I would say about why you need a stronger motor. So again, it's not about the sustained forces. So don't think that I don't run my CSL-DD at 100%. So for sure I don't need to upgrade. Well, frankly, you don't need to upgrade. That's a great wheelbase. But yeah, that's not the reason you wouldn't want to upgrade. Yeah, hope that made sense. But broadly speaking, everyone's going to have some point where they cross, and yeah, those peak torque values are going to matter a little bit less. So I would say this 16, the jump from the 12, I mean, it's not, it's definitely better, and I love the feeling of this wheelbase. I don't see myself going back to the 12, but at the same time, if I had to do with the 12, could I? Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a phenomenal wheelbase, and I love the wheels that support it. Or that it supports, perhaps. So less of a wow jump going from 12 to 16 than I was from my CSL DD with boost kit to the R12, but still definitely there. I do like that. Wow, I can feel that suspension compressing, and feeling that the way the tire interacts with the road surface. It's so good. It's so good. It's such a tremendous wheelbase, and just could hardly love it more. So I think that'll do it. I hope you guys get the point. I did a lot of ranting in the middle there about torque values, but yeah, broadly speaking, I mean, this is a tremendous wheelbase. I love the feel of it, and enjoying every single minute with my R16 V2.
All right, so time to talk about the Moza Racing R16 V2. I'm going to give you my good, neutral, bad, things I like, things I'm just kind of okay with, and things I don't like about this wheelbase. And we will start off, as always, with the good and things I like. First one is, of course, the force feedback quality. It is phenomenal. Truly outstanding. The R12, in my mind, is one of the best things on the sim racing market right now. This R16 puts it to shame. Is the best way I could put it. I didn't think 33% torque would make that much of a difference, but it really does. I went back to my R12 just to test, and it still feels great. This just feels better. There is a perceptible difference. There is just no way around it. I love the force feedback quality of this R16 V2. I think Moza has done a phenomenal job capturing whatever it is that makes their newer wheelbases feel better, with also that higher peak torque motor. So really bang on with the force feedback quality. And of course, we talk about the QR. I will say this till the end of time. Moza gets the quick release system right. You just reach around the back of your wheel, you pull, your wheel is off. When you're ready to put it on, push your wheel on. What a concept. It's so simple, works incredibly well. And, you know, that wireless communication, it's just flawless. So it's a simple one. It's something I put in every Moza video, though. They just nail the QR system. And I think there's some other companies that could learn something from this. And also, we will talk about the software, the Moza Pit House software. I've been a fan of it for a long time. I've seen a lot of other reviewers sort of warming up to it over time, and just seems to give you the level of control you need to not only set your force feedback profiles, but also, you know, do firmware updates and that kind of thing, and register the product. And overall, I think the Pit House software stands up nicely. And of course, we talk about the supporting wheel lineup. I have the KS wheel, I have the CS wheel, the FSR, and I think 3 versions of the GS now. I don't know if I can talk about that 3rd version quite yet, but I have a number of wheels, all reasonably priced. The FSR, I mean, you're talking about like close to a $700 wheel. So again, I'm not going to pretend it's cheap, but at the same time, they do a good job with a wide range of wheels and, you know, different offerings, different, depending on the type of car you want to drive. And so the supporting wheel lineup from Moza has matured nicely. And, yeah, it's a great thing to support this R16. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, the style. It looks nice. It's got that taper to it. It's got a little bit of coloring. Not a huge fan of the color, but at the same time, they tried. They made a design that's not so loud that it's going to clash with a lot of systems, but it's not a cube. It's not a shipping container. It's obvious. It's an automotive design product. You can see the core of it is very similar to like the Sim Magic, where it's a long tube, or this Simu Cube, and then they put these plastic louvers out here. I believe it's entirely cosmetic. There is one piece of exposed copper here, which I believe is for the dash that sits here. But broadly, I think this is more, you know, cosmetic than functional out here, but it gives it a nice look, and they do a good job with it. And then price, this one's close to being neutral, but I'm going to keep it in the good category. $800. Is it something you go out and just buy without a second thought? Not for most people. $800 is a fair amount of money. However, it's not outrageous. Like, I could see them pricing this at $1,000 plus, given that it has, you know, the phenomenal force feedback quality and kind of captures everything they've developed over the past few years with that stronger motor. Is it an obvious value like some other Moza products? No, I think $800 does give me a little bit of pause, but at the same time, it is still overall a good deal, I would say, in consideration to many of its competitors. So I'm going to put the price in the good category, but it's kind of cheating toward neutral. And of course, something I love to talk about is they include everything. So with the exception of the front mount, but you don't have to go searching for bolts. You don't have to go searching for Allen keys or anything like that. It includes everything you need, including the USB cable, including the power cable, so you can just get up and running right away. I don't like thinking that I have to run to a hardware store to get a piece of gear that I just spent $800 on up and running. You don't. With the Moza, they include everything. It's also the smoothest wheel. I think it was the R3 that I reviewed, and it was the notchiest wheel I had ever owned, I think, with the exception of maybe my G29. This one, they finally got the smoothness right. This is very smooth. The only one I would put above this in terms of smoothness is the Logitech G Pro. That thing just feels like there's nothing going on in there. It just feels like it's one big ball bearing or something. This one's still very smooth. This is their smoothest wheel, I believe. And yeah, it feels great. So that it doesn't really matter is why I put it kind of lower in my good list. Because once it's up and running, like I would say the R12 feels quite notchy when it's, you know, at idle like this. But as soon as you get up and running, it feels smooth. So it doesn't really matter. But just this level of smoothness tells me they've got the components right in there for the motor to be able to do its job as efficiently as possible. And finally, in the good category, something that's very important is the smooth and quiet operation. You cannot hear this thing. You cannot feel this getting hot. I've driven it for an hour or more in a sitting, and it remains cool. It remains quiet. No obvious fan noise, no heating, no degradation of the strength over time. It just stays cool and quiet and runs tremendously. And so under operation, it is pretty much perfect. Moving now to the neutral category, things I'm just kind of okay with or things of note. One is 16 Newton meters peak torque is a lot. I know you see offerings going up to, 30 Newton meters. I believe somebody makes a 40 Newton meter commercially available wheelbase, so 16 might not seem a lot. It is a ton. If you have a Formula style wheel or a GT style wheel on here, you let go after you hit a wall, it snaps around, hits your hand. It can very well break a bone in your hand. It's going to really, really hurt. So there's a cautionary tale there that, you know, if you have young kids that are going to be racing, don't go with the R16. Even if you turn it down in the software, I still wouldn't fully trust it. Is it strong all the time? No. You can, of course, turn this down once you get it set up in your most common racing simulator or whatever racing simulator you're running at the time. You know, it can be as light as you want it, but it does have those instantaneous forces where if you're not careful, if it's not set up right, you could potentially hurt yourself. So just a cautionary tale. And along with that goes the need for a strong rig. You're not going to be able to put something like this on a desk clamp. You're not going to be able to put something like this on, you know, a very light portable rig or something like that. You need a proper rig for something of this power. It is very strong. So again, not anything they've done wrong, just kind of a cautionary tale that if you're thinking, yes, this is exactly what I've been looking for, that sounds like a great wheelbase, just know that if you have, a very light duty a very light duty cockpit or a desk clamp system, this is not going to be the wheelbase for you. And also in the neutral category, there's less wow factor in this R16 than there was in the R12. When I drove the R12 and continued to drive the R12 long past the review, it just felt like this is it. This is Moza's new flagship, and it was just phenomenal in every regard. The price was, you know, showing obvious value. Force feedback quality, phenomenal. Strength, phenomenal. This one basically does everything better, but it doesn't wow me as much. I think that jump from $550 to $800, it gives some consideration. I think probably most users, and I'll get into this more when I give my conclusion, but I think most users would probably be okay with the R12. When you consider value, this has less wow factor than the R12 did. Does it beat it on performance? Yes. This feels better, higher quality force feedback, better instantaneous strength, smoother operation. But again, just lacks a little bit of that wow factor that I got with the R12. Okay, and the bad, I've only got two things. The first one is that there's no indicator light. Is this on or off? Obviously, you know it's off because I don't have the power supply attached, but there's no light to say. It would be nice if there was a little LED there or something to, glow blue, glow red, whatever color they wanted, but some sort of indication that the wheelbase was on or off would be helpful. Granted, if you have a wheel on there, you're going to see the tachometer bar flashing, or, if it's the FSR wheel, maybe you have a screen that's showing, but in standard operation, in standby mode, like it would be here if it was plugged in, you have no way of knowing if it's on or off. So why they didn't include an LED light is very confusing. Second in the bad category, very annoying. These two holes in the top do not line up with their own dash. I don't know what these are intended to serve. I do believe the larger dash uses these side holes to mount. So these top holes should have been purposed to fit that dash, to fit Moza's own dash. They don't, which is really annoying because I have that smaller dash. I enjoy using that smaller dash, but you can't put it on the R16 V2. I don't know what they were thinking. So what are my final thoughts? Well, this thing is unbelievably impressive, hugely impressive. I told you in the neutral that it has less wow factor than the R12, and I do mean that. I think it gives you a little bit of pause. Should you buy the R12? Should you buy the R16 V2? Should you buy the R21 V2? I'm fortunate to own all three. In terms of value, you can knock the R21 V2 out of there, and the R21 V2 is going to have the slightest edge in a very narrow set of circumstances. There are things that more powerful motors can do that less powerful motors simply can't. It's like horsepower in cars or something. As cool as your car might be, there's certain circumstances where horsepower is just going to win the day. And that's true with wheelbases as well. So there's certain circumstances where the R21 is going to shine over this, but they're exceedingly rare. Overall, this is the ticket. If you want great feeling force feedback from Moza Racing, you're not going to beat the R16 V2, in my opinion, especially in consideration of price. But again, versus the R12, where do I land? I would say that if $800 is a stretch for you. First of all, don't ever go into debt for a hobby. So if $800 is more than you can afford, don't spend $800. If you're considering this, if you're thinking, well, I don't want to be stuck with the R12, that probably stinks next to the R16 V2. It does not. The R12 stands up. It's beautiful. It's amazing. Don't be afraid to go with that. Given a choice at $800, if price is a consideration for you, I would get the R12 plus one of the Moza wheels, maybe the KS wheel, maybe the CS wheel, depending on what you like to drive, and you will be extremely happy with that setup. If you have a little bit more to spend, if you're looking at, a little bit over $1,000, and you're considering the R16 V2 plus a Moza wheel, I cannot recommend that setup enough. This is my new baby. This is my new regular. As I say, I snuck it into recent videos because I've been loving it so much. This isn't something that I just review and then push to the side like a few others of the past. This is my regular wheel now. I absolutely love it. But again, just a little bit of pause in consideration of value. So depending on what you're looking to spend, this may or may not be the right one for you. But broadly speaking, it is phenomenal, and yeah, a new flagship for Moza for sure, and their best, and can't sing the praises enough. So thank you so much to Moza Racing for sending this through to me. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time.